Welcome to Networking RX, a podcast devoted to helping business professionals like you enhance your networking skills in order to become more proficient giving and receiving quality business referrals and improving the overall quality of your life and the lives of those around you. The Networking RX podcast is a production of AmSpirit Business Connections, an organization whose mission is to empower business success through networking.
Welcome to the Networking RX podcast. I'm your host, Frank Agan, founder and president of AmSpirit Business Connections. Today, we have another great guest. As ongoing subscribers know, often on this podcast, I will be sharing ideas, insights, and best practices for building professional relationships and excelling at business networking. Occasionally, however, I'll be interviewing subject matter experts, authors, speakers, thought leaders, social scientists. These people share their knowledge to help us build relationships as well as understand why humans interact the way they do. Today, I have on the program Jack Killion. Jack had a 10-year corporate career, and following that, he launched an entrepreneurial career that has spanned 40 plus years. And it involves starting and growing. Well, he's been involved in starting and growing 9 different ventures, and certainly helping lots of other people now. And a lot of those ventures were not sequential; they were concurrent. So sometimes he would do more than one at the same time. So, Jack, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. I'm really glad to be here and participating.
You know, one of the things I did leave out in your bio is that you're the author of the book Network, all the time, everywhere, with everybody. Master your life and your career. Good stuff.
That's my philosophy.
Well, what's your philosophy? Share it.
My philosophy is you should be networking all the time, everywhere, with everybody. You know, the real way to achieve success in all dimensions in your life and your career, I think, is based on building great relationships with interesting people that you can add value to and accomplish things together. So that's a lesson I didn't learn up until I was about 30 years old. But it wasn't until I went off of my entrepreneurial career when I really started. I didn't even consciously decide to start networking, but it just had to be something I started to do because nobody knew what I was trying to do. I didn't have any clients or money or experience or office space or partners. So I had to sort of create my own way. And that boiled down to learning how to meet people and building trust-based relationships and finding ways to do good things with good people. And, you know, I still learn how to do it better every day. But I've been really a very active networker for the last 45 years. And it's been key to whatever little success I've had in starting and growing 9 different companies.
Yeah.
Because every time I get into a new area, a new business sector, that involves developing a whole new community of valuable contacts. So I've got to be pretty good at it, and I enjoy it.
Now, what was that epiphany for you? It's looking at the math, you were 10 years in a corporate career. And I think a lot of people in corporate careers don't really, you need to please your boss. And that's pretty much your main focus. But you're out there entrepreneurially for 5 years, it sounds like. And at some point it just clicked. Can you remember that moment when it just clicked, or did something happen?
No, I really had a great corporate job. My last job was with this big management consulting firm, McKinsey. And the thing that spooked me into leaving is they started talking to me about becoming a partner at the end of the year, like a junior partner, which was way ahead of the normal curve for that happening. And it forced me to really think about whether that's what I want to be doing for the rest of my life. So I went back to my office that night. I worked late and I thought about it. I called my wife up and I said, "Hey, Jude, I just made 2 decisions." And she said, "What are they?" I said, "We're going to buy a racehorse." And she said, "When are we going to do that?" I said, "I don't know, because we don't have much money, but I want to own a racehorse. So I got to find a cheap one." And she said, "What's your other decision?" I said, "I'm going to quit my job." And she said, "When?" I said, "Tomorrow." And she got me to explain why. She said, "What are you going to do?" I said, "I'm not sure, but my passion is for helping small businesses. So I guess I'm going to leave and try to help small businesses raise money and develop their strategies and everything." So I left on that basis with no previous track record doing it, no real relevant contacts. Back then, there were no cell phones, no internet, no fax machines. So I had to commute from New Jersey into New York, where all the people were, go to a railroad station and start making cold calls from payphones. And I hated it. But if I didn't do that, nothing was going to happen. And I had already sawed the limb off of my career. I had no safety net. So it was either do it or starve. And that's a bad option.
Yeah.
So I just taught myself to meet people and begin to build relationships. And back then, I was pretty naive. So I tried to get to almost anybody. And the first really successful cold call I had was with a guy who was managing the money in America for the Rothschild family, one of the wealthiest families in the world. And I got him on the phone from a payphone in Grand Central. I introduced myself. I said, "I'd like to come down and meet you because I'm going to be trying to work with small companies that need funding. And I assume that your family office is interested in deals. So if I come down, I'd like to learn about what kind of investment situations you look for. So if I ever call you back, you know that at least I think I have something that meets your criteria." And he didn't even hesitate. He said, "That sounds great. Come on down. I'd be happy to meet with you." And that was a real turning point. It made me realize that, good people are always willing to help. They're willing to go out of their way to make themselves available. And that just started me down the road of building confidence and reaching out to people and trying to build relationships long term. And I stayed friends with him for like 15 years.
Yeah. What I took away from that short little story is, yes, people are willing to help, but you also went in and it wasn't a, "Hey, I need help. Help me, help me, help me." It's like, I've got some value for you.
Right.
And that's the benefit of you meeting with me. And I think people lose that. I talk to young people who are looking for jobs, and sounds like you do a lot of that type of coaching, at least with respect to your book. And, you read their cover letters and it's like, "Hey, this is what this would do for me." Right.
Right.
I need this job to pay my student loans. No. What's the value you bring?
Right. It's always got to be, at a minimum, it's got to be win-win, or
Yeah.
it's got to be more slanted toward the other person. I think one of the real keys to being a successful networker and being able to develop really important relationships is don't keep score. Don't worry so much about what you get out of it. Just focus on how you can add value to other people in whatever they're trying to achieve. And somehow over a period of time, I think that balances out. And there's also a great psychic income from helping people. So my whole focus, the most important question maybe you can ask somebody is, "How can I help you? What can I do to help?" And do that in a genuine way so that people know that you're really interested in going beyond and making an effort to help.
Yeah.
It's nothing complicated.
Yeah. Well, that's a great point. And I certainly would add, if I make that offer to people and don't put pressure on them to come through, because sometimes that catches people off guard.
Right.
But like you say, if you're genuine, they'll circle back.
Yeah. Yeah. Like most people are never really asked that question by people, because most people don't approach building relationships from the point of view of what can I do to help you. So, if you ask me today, what could you do to help me? I'd have to think about that. I don't have an immediate need in my mind.
Yeah.
But just the fact that that's your approach to our relationship, tells me I can probably trust you. You're genuine and looking out for my welfare. And as we get to know each other, you need to get to know each other. We'll find finger holds. And I equate networking to rock climbing. And we're trying to find finger holds where we have common things in interest, our interests overlap with each other. And that's where we can really begin to add value. And when I coach young people, high school kids or college kids on some of these skills, a lot of them don't think that they could add value to people like you, for example.
Yeah.
And I said, don't underestimate yourself. Do you know any good Italian restaurant you could suggest? Or a good golf course you played? Or a good place to go for a weekend getaway with your family?
Yeah.
Or a good book? There's always ways for people to add value to each other, either personally or professionally.
I have found that the people that I thought could do the most for me ended up doing the least for whatever reason. They might be just self-centered or just not dialed in that way.
Right.
And the people that I thought, I didn't overlook them, but just I didn't have big expectations, came through in big ways.
Totally. You can't prejudge.
Yeah.
And most people don't think like the way we're talking. So I think as people hang out with guys like you and me, they can begin to adjust and learn about how to do a better job of developing relationships. And it's not all business oriented. I view building relationships as having a potentially good benefit, both professionally and personally. And I tell people when I'm coaching them that I don't really care if you don't do this stuff. That's you making that decision that's going to hurt you. But by not doing it, you're really shortchanging the people you care about. You're shortchanging your family. You're shortchanging your friends, because you could be turning up opportunities for them that they will never even know were possibilities.
Yeah.
So I think that's a point that many people miss in this whole concept of building relationships.
In coaching with people, can you think of some great successes out there that you've had? Just, not yours per se, but somebody who kind of came to you and couldn't find their head with two hands when it came to networking.
Sure. I used to be in the racehorse business.
You bought a racehorse.
I bred and trained racehorses for 20 years.
Okay.
So, and I did that full time while I was also running other businesses. So at the height of being crazy, I was running my racehorse business, 2 magazines in New York, and a manufacturing company building plastic extruding equipment in New Jersey. And at the end of one racing season at Monmouth Racetrack in New Jersey, a friend of mine came to me who was a really down and out trainer, married guy with 3 kids. Mm-hmm. He wasn't even making it at the track so he could afford to go home at night. He was sleeping in his car at the track. And he said, I'm really getting worn out. It's wrecking my family life. You own a manufacturing company. Is there any way you could hire me for the summer? And I said to him, I don't really see how I can do that. Everybody in the company's going to think I'm just trying to be a good guy for a fellow racetrack buddy. I said, but if you're willing to put in the time and come in, you can come in whatever schedule you want and learn about whether you really would like being in this company, and we can learn whether you can make a contribution. I'd be willing to do it on that basis. You wouldn't get paid, but I wouldn't keep track of your hours, but it'll give us a chance to evaluate each other without the people in the company thinking I was being a patsy.
Right.
So he agreed to do that. And he came in almost every day for the summer. And at the end of the summer, he either had to go back to the racetrack, because that's when the next session started, or give up training horses and stay with me. So we sat down, and it was clear that this guy could make a difference. The people in the company really responded to him. He had demonstrated that he was sincere. So we negotiated a deal for him to join full time. And once we made that decision, he didn't know it was coming. I paid him retroactively to when he had started this unpaid thing, because I want to see whether he was committed. Well, he stayed with my company for 10 years until I sold the company. He then went with the company that acquired our company, and he wound up being head of national sales for a New York Stock Exchange company, making about $300,000 a year.
Wow.
And there's lots of stories like that.
Yeah, that's an amazing story.
Right.
I think the difference between the people who do well and the people who don't, the people who struggle, I should say, is just that little bit of information, that little bit of being disciplined, that little bit of getting to know other people, that little bit of whatever it is. It's not these huge differences. It's the little things.
Right. It's incrementally doing good things and being willing to invest in yourself. What I was trying to see with him with my crazy offer was whether he was really prepared to invest in his own future. We were both going to be investing time. Our time was in training him. His time was in learning. I didn't expect any ROI from him for that period of time.
Right.
But he was willing to make that commitment to himself and to us. So I've had, I could share stories of people I met who haven't reacted like that. And they got totally bypassed, not just by me, but in their lifetime.
Yeah.
And their family never knew that they had other opportunities.
Yeah. I think that's the problem. I hate to pin it on any one generation because every generation has these struggles. That's the problem with a lot of people is they want too much too soon.
I don't really see much difference generation to generation.
Right.
That's not something I'm smart enough to really observe very often. Just some people are more receptive. They have more confidence. They're willing to do more for themselves and the people they care about. And some people aren't.
Yeah.
Some people just go through the motions.
Yeah. Let's switch gears here quickly. And I want to talk about street smart entrepreneurs and your current projects.
Yep.
And, talk about those and how people can help you get where it's going.
Okay, great. I started Street Smart Entrepreneurs, which is my 10th startup, about 7 or 8 months ago. And I realized that COVID-19 was going to have a lot of really horrible impacts on people, but it was also going to be something that created a lot of positive changes in the world. I thought it's certainly going to improve and change our education system. It's going to improve and change our healthcare system. I think it's going to make corporate America leaner, more flexible, more competitive. And I think it's going to drive entrepreneurship worldwide because people are not going to go back to the old way of doing things. Companies are not going to go back to the old way of doing things. Most people who have lost their jobs, many of them, aren't going to be able to so easily replace them. So they're going to have to reinvent themselves. So given the fact that I've spent over 40 years starting and growing all kinds of different ventures, I think I have a lot to bring to that party to help people make those changes. And I think it's also going to be a really good business opportunity for my new venture. So my new venture is focusing on things like developing online courses for entrepreneurs. And we're going to release one this week. And the title is Vital Networking Skills for Entrepreneurs, Business Owners, and Leaders. And it's about a 10-hour course. And it includes, I think, 7 or 8 other guest lectures. And we really get into the depth of how do you successfully network and build alliances. So we're going to be developing a portfolio of courses for entrepreneurs. The next one is probably going to be on how to raise funding for early stage companies. And then we're doing some strategic consulting with organizations that are finding us because we're posting on LinkedIn and keeping people up to date on emails. So we've been retained by a $6 billion real estate company to develop a series of management training programs that are much more entrepreneurially focused than what they've been traditionally doing. So we got that going. And then I recently have been approached by a couple of entrepreneurial type people from outside the US. This week I got approached by a guy in Israel who's got a hedge fund that's about 2 years old, mostly funded with Israeli money. And now he's looking to attract capital outside of Israel. And somehow he stumbled across Street Smart Entrepreneurs. And we have a a meeting tomorrow to talk about how street smart entrepreneurs could help him market his hedge fund in the US. I was also contacted recently by a guy in Ghana who is looking for somebody in the US to team up with to help African companies who are wanting to come into the American market. So we're going to be doing consulting. We're going to be developing these courses. And then I'm also in discussions with a couple of universities about partnering to develop programs to help develop minority entrepreneurs in inner cities in our major markets. So I'm starting out with that discussion with a couple of possible university partners to work with me in the metro New York area. And the idea would be that we would team up. We would go out to raise the funding to develop the program and partner to develop the curriculum and deliver the curriculum. And I think that's going to happen. And I think we'll have a major impact on minorities who are looking for a better way to bootstrap their way out of trouble.
Yeah, no, that's all that's inspiring, really.
And it's all possible.
Yeah.
And all those stones that are being overturned, they all come from just talking to people and somebody's mentioning to somebody else, like the contact with the university. One of them is in New York City University. And I was telling a lawyer friend of mine about my idea, just in a conversation. And I said, I can't be the face of this program.
Right.
I'm a chubby old white guy. I'm going to come across as totally disingenuous. Mm-hmm. So I've got to find some minority people that would want to do this with me, where we can really team up, because they would bring things that I can't bring, and I would bring things that they can't bring. And this woman lawyer says, I know exactly the person to put you in touch with. So she connected me with a friend of hers, a minority woman.
Yep.
And we had a preliminary discussion. And now she's taken me to the head of the university. We've had a conversation about this program. And I just got an email 10 minutes ago from her saying we'll be back in touch next week to talk about next steps. So, it all comes from just making the effort, sharing information, sharing ideas, thinking outside the box, not looking for anything in return, not being short-sighted. I think anything good that happens takes at least a year to develop. So from the time I started Street Smart Entrepreneurs, it's going to take us a good year to build a head of steam and get a revenue stream going. But I recognize that when I was in the horse race business, breeding horses, from the time I picked a stallion, it would be a year before the baby would be born. So I think anything worthwhile takes at least a year, and you got to be patient like that. End of the lecture.
No, I said this is great. I mean, that's the purpose of this. How people listening, how could they help you? Who you're looking to meet? Obviously, I'm going to put the website in there so they can get through there and contact you with resources or interest in being involved some way or another.
Another thing we got going before I answer that question is we've created something called the Global Entrepreneurs Forum. And we're going to meet on a quarterly basis. And it's a way really to bring opportunities and people to me, which is part of my philosophy. But we bring in a guest for each of those meetings. And we spend 90 minutes, like we're spending today. We spend 90 minutes talking about a topic that's really potentially important to entrepreneurs worldwide. So on the 26th, we have a meeting with a woman who's been heading her own branding and marketing agency for 15 years, working with major companies throughout the country. And we're going to be talking about, how entrepreneurial ventures can brand and market themselves with scarce resources and with real purpose. So the kinds of people I'm looking to meet other entrepreneurs who might benefit either from taking some of our courses, and our courses are all going to be very cost effective. And eventually I can envision having like a micro MBA course for entrepreneurs. And it's all based on content and instruction from people who have done it. So in all of the courses that we're developing, I mean, the people that we bring in as guest lecturers, they've done it. This is not academic stuff. It's not stuff that comes out of textbooks. So I'm looking for other people who would be interested in participating in courses. For example, yesterday I talked to a family office out in Boulder, Colorado, and I wound up talking to him about whether they would be interested in being a guest lecturer on the course we're developing on fundraising, because they're looking for deals. And I think it would be very useful to spend 20 or 25 minutes, including him in our discussion
Sure.
about how family offices look at investments, what size, what kind, what their exit strategies are, how actively they get involved. So I think we're developing content that's really unique and can have a real major impact on people and their successes.
I would totally agree. I really appreciate your time here today. I'm going to get the your website in the show notes so people can contact you.
That'd be great.
Any parting words?
No, I appreciate this opportunity, and I'd be happy to try to find ways to help in any way I can to anybody who's listening, or share information or share contacts. That's what it's all about. I mean, you can't go through either your personal or your professional life as a solo act. You've got to be developing alliances that can really hold up under stress and can really return great results both ways.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AmSpirit.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.